NMIF correspondent Gwyneth Dolan also spent some time in Santa Fe this week, checking in on the progress on plans to reform the state's failing public employee pension program. It's all part of our Your New Mexico Government project, in collaboration with KUNM Radio and the Santa Fe Reporter.
Representative Anderson, the Public Employees Pension Fund is in a hole about as deep as this year's state budget, $7 billion. How do we get out of that hole?
Well, I think it's going to take leadership from both the legislature and the executive. Our governor had a task force that served through the summer, did great work. I served on the Investment and Pensions Oversight Committee along with several members of the Senate and the House. Out of all of that has emerged a bill which I believe is going to set New Mexico on a course to solvency in its public pensions.
Okay, so where exactly is all that money going to come from?
Well, that money comes from different sources. One is the general fund surplus that we're all aware of in this coming fiscal year. The second will be an employer contribution. The third will be an employee contribution. All of that is going to add up to bringing our solvency deficit to a break even, to 100% funding, that being a break even. And that's our objective, and we should get there in about 25 years.
So right now, the Retirement Board, PARA, grants a cost of living adjustment. But that's going to change. How?
Well, it's going to change for starting on a 3-year moratorium when the COLAs will not be funded. However, House Bill 2 has $70 million which replaces that funding, and the pensioners will receive a 13th check for the next 3 years for their lost COLA.
And then that cost of living increase will be changed. The way we calculate it is going to change.
Going forward, it's going to be a recalculation, and good years will be good years on COLA, and bad years will be less good years or low COLA years. And protected in there are our state employees who are on pensions at the lower end of the pension range. And those COLAs will be especially protected.
Let's talk about what the issue is, right? People are living longer, and because of that, they're taking more money out of the system than they sometimes even put in by working the span of time that they did. Back when these pension systems were first put into place in, say, the 30s or 40s, people lived a certain amount of time after they worked and then passed away. Well, now people are living longer and yet working the same amount of time. So when you look at what money's going in versus what money's going out, there's a lot more on the back end than there used to be. And that's why it's important that places around the country, not just New Mexico, look at ways of changing the systems to secure a pension. And that's what we're trying to do here.
And that's not the only risk, right?
It's not. So when the state borrows money to do things like construct new roads or new libraries or new schools, we borrow just like you borrow money to get a house. And we pay an interest rate on that. It's called a credit rating. And it's called a bond rating. So like your and my credit rating, the higher your bond rating is, the less money you have to pay out to get that money. If your bond rating shrinks, just like if your and my credit rating shrinks, it costs you more to borrow money. That bond rating is determined based on risk. So if we don't do what we can to make this pension system more solvent, less risky over time, that means there's a chance that our bond rating could go down, which is going to cost you and me and every other taxpayer more dollars when we want to make a new school, when we want to make a new road, that sort of thing. And that's really, really important to make sure that we have the infrastructure needed going forward. I know there's two different things, but the agencies that are making these determinations have in the past decreased bond ratings for other states that didn't do the right thing and make these things solid over time.
I want to ask you about the public employees who are working here now.
Yeah.
They're going to be asked to pay a little bit more.
Me too.
Do they support this?
Yes. So all the unions that we can count support it. That includes AFSCME, the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, the Communication Workers of America, which represent a bunch of people working in the public sector, the International Association of Firefighters, as well as the Albuquerque Police Officers Association. So all of the unions that we know about are actually supporting this because they want to make sure that their members, which are the current employees, have a system that is protected and defined moving into the future. And that's really important to them. It's really important to the governor. It's really important to everybody.
I'm here with Representative Christine Chandler of Los Alamos talking about a proposal for a new state retirement plan. Representative, the House has approved this proposal already. Why do you want to create a new retirement plan for the state?
Well, Gwen, at this point in time, we know that over 60% of employees who work for private employers of the state have no private retirement plan. In addition, we also know that more than 80% of people who are trying to save for retirement have less than $10,000 saved. So this bill is intended to allow employers to voluntarily participate so that their employees can begin developing the habit of retirement savings. And that's very important for the state because we know we have a high poverty rate and we have a high rate of individuals who are older who are in poverty or just on the edge of poverty, and this is intended to provide them with a tool to plan for retirement.
So who would be allowed to participate in this program?
Private employers in the state of New Mexico, self-employed individuals, and not-for-profits. So we know that there are a lot of not-for-profits as well who don't have the wherewithal to offer retirement plans or complex retirement savings plans. So this will help all of the above and ensure that people who work for those or who are self-employed will have access to a retirement savings plan.
But can't they just go sign up with Merrill Lynch or Schwab?
Yes, they can, and we hope that they do. But this makes it easy for people. When you're employed and you just are allowed to have, or you can set up an automatic payroll deduction, we know that people are 15 times more likely to participate in a retirement savings plan if it's done through the employer through an automatic deduction.
Is it going to cost the state money to set this up?
We did have an appropriation in the bill. But in working with the State Treasurer's Office, who's been fantastic, by the way, the State Treasurer has been very much on board with this, he has said that he's willing to work within his budget at this point in time to stand the program up. We may need an appropriation down the road to help support the program, but at this point, the Treasurer thinks he can handle it with the monies that he's being appropriated right now.